Dryad saddle is also called Pheasant's Back due to the feathery appearance and coloration of the cap's squamules, or scales. It thus goes by the scientific names Polyporus squamosus and also Cereoporus squamosus. David Arara, author of my favorite mushroom book, Mushrooms Demystified, describes this species as thoroughly mediocre. Perhaps its greatest value is that, at least in my area, it's the first abundant, meaty, and easily identified mushroom species in the spring, and it's about all I'll ever find while I'm out looking for morels. I found these specimens growing on dead elm trees along a creek. Although the much larger specimens are the most tempting, most foragers, including the forager chef, recommend targeting smaller species for their tenderness, and I found this to be very true. The consensus among pickers seems to be that if you aren't going to saute these guys in fresh wild leeks, then you should preserve them by drying them and then grinding them down into a powder for use in soups and stews. I'm going to eat some of my smaller specimens sauteed with onions, and you'll see that in this video. The larger ones are going to get trimmed, sliced, and dehydrated to be set aside. I'll experiment with them a bit this year, but mostly intend to set them aside for next year, our big wild year, in which we are eating only foraged foods. Are they worth it? Well, the taste was really good, as you'll see later in the video, and they're very bulky. I was able to collect a very large amount of them in a very short period of time. But as far as nutritional content goes, I'll reference it later in the video, but was unable to find any great data on that. It is really unmistakable at this time of year with this feathered appearance on the top, the size of the mushroom, growing on damaged elms, ashes, or Manitoba maples, and the fact that it's a polypore. You can see the nice fresh face on these polypores surface, and they're relatively small, so this one, and it feels like it too, should be fairly tender eating specimen. I can always dry it down for soup. And you can see a little tiny one hiding behind it, but that's not really big enough to pick. I'm going to look along here for some more. Just noticed this as I looked in my carrying basket. If you look very, very closely, this Dryad saddle has all kinds of springtails on it. So at the end of winter you'd see these in the snow. I would call these snow fleas, but there's no snow now, so I guess these are Dryad's fleas. I don't know what they're doing on there. I guess they're having a snack or something. So I'll have to make sure I wash all those guys off before I do anything with this. Young specimens here, older specimens up here, more in the back. Other side of the tree, and down near the base also. So they seem to have nice fresh undersides, so I'm going to harvest a bunch of these guys. So I left a few on the tree. You can see the cut stems. This is what I got. I had one mushroom in here, and then the rest all came from this one clump of trees, and there's more than 10 pounds of fresh mushroom in there. So I probably could keep looking around here for more, but this is already maybe more than what'll fit in my dehydrator. So I will slice these up, dehydrate them, and most of them I'm going to use for Wilderness Living Challenge, hashtag Big Wild Year, and some of them I'm going to fry up tonight, so I'll show a little bit of footage of that in a minute. And I'm also going to see if I can find some nutritional data on these. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what do you get out of however many pounds of mushrooms this is, which I should also weigh when I get home, and I'll let you know. Alright, so there they are. Oh, I said I was going to weigh them, didn't I? Hold on a second. Well, I looked around. I don't actually have anything to weigh these guys with, but there's 6 pounds of mushrooms there, maybe? I don't know. Depends on how you lift it. At least 6 pounds of mushrooms. And I want to eat the smallest ones with my supper. And these bigger ones I'm going to trim up, and they're going in the dehydrator. So let's say that I'm going to eat these guys here. So we'll trim off the stalk. Check for bugs. Check for dirt. Did on the Forager Chef, he suggests slicing these really thin with a mandolin, about as thin as they'll go, and that really seems to be a good way to prepare them. So this one here wasn't that much bigger than the first one, but I feel a difference in the texture of the, you can hear it probably, and how it's not cutting very easily. So I'm going to set that guy aside. That first one was for sure tender. Let's see what else I've got in my... There's some little guys. Those can be for supper. And bear with me. Remember I had a couple the other day. So we'll give these guys a try. I had them in my fridge so they're a little bit drier now. But these guys are tender. These little baby dryads. Now, cut the stem off of that guy. Discard that. Let's see what this one's like. Yeah, that's pretty tough too. That one's gonna go for the dehydrator. And cut the stem off of this guy. Yeah, that's dehydrator material as well. So these guys are all going to get trimmed and chunked up for the dehydrator. I'll do that off camera. I don't think you need to watch me chopping away. These guys here, let's get a pan with some hot butter, and some onions. Onions, more onions, Dryad saddle. Let's get some lights on here, eh? And we're just gonna let that simmer away for a little bit. This is smelling really good. Some of the onion has started to caramelize, and some of the mushroom pieces, like this piece right here, are looking pretty cooked, while other pieces, like this piece here, are looking a little bit less cooked, but whew, it's hot. Ouch. So, not a little bit impromptu, but welcome to my messy kitchen. It's even that young specimen was really chewy. And it feels like there's mushroom attached to a skin. The flavor's okay. On that piece anyway, it's a little bit bland. There's a little bit of the onion flavor in there. But I don't know what that reminds me of. It kind of reminds me of gristle. When you get meat attached to a little bit of gristle and you can chew the meat off, but then the string of gristle is still left there. That's what that reminds me of. Let's we're gonna let these cook a little bit longer. But the flavor is good, and I'm interested to see what happens when we it won't be in this video, but we're gonna dehydrate some, powder them down, and then use them for flavor. So we'll let that sit a little bit longer. Oh yeah, that's really cooked down quite a bit. I just was trying to find some information about nutritional content for Polyporus squamosus, this Dryad saddle, of which I was able to find none. And so I just sent an email to David Aurora, the author of Mushrooms Demystified, which is, as I've said in other videos, my favorite mushroom identification guide, and hope that he might be able to point me in the direction. It's a long shot because I'm sure he gets all kinds of email from enthusiastic mushroomers, but I just do not know where to find information about nutritional data for different mushroom species, and maybe it's just because it hasn't been done. I found some for mushrooms indigenous to India, but I did not find any for mushrooms indigenous to North America. Let's put this on a plate. This smells so good. That'll be the next evolution of YouTube experience. It'll combine the smells with the video. Oh, yeah. Alright. Let's let this cool down a second and I'm going to take a big bite. Alright, cooled down a little bit, so here we go. The onion is good. The Dryad saddle is okay. But it's kind of chewy. The flavor is good, and it goes really well with the mushrooms, but I feel like I should have taken the advice of the forager chef and sliced it really thin. So, based on cooking it like any old wild mushroom, I would say that I do not approve of the Dryad saddle, and you'll have to stay tuned for a later video where I will try dehydrating, grinding, and then using the powder as a flavor in a soup or a stew. Like, the flavor is good, but the texture is, I don't know, it's just a little bit too tough. Anyway, hope that was educational for you. It was for me. I have a heck of a lot of these mushrooms now, so I'm for sure going to dehydrate them and make the most of them. But as far as just slicing, dicing, cooking, and eating, meh, not so great.